And we're back with Peter Adkison. Hi, how's it going, Peter?
Hey.
All right.
What?
And this is Brian Weissman, and myself, Daniel Chang. This second part video, we did the first part. Incredible storytelling. If you guys want to hear more fireside chats of the personalities of Magic in the beginning.
Yes.
Tell us about the...
So I'm streaming a show, so please come check it out. It's on Gen Con TV on Twitch. So Twitch, Gen Con TV. It's called Fireside with Peter Adkison. My co-host is Beverly Marshall Saling. She was our executive editor throughout the 90s. And Beverly and I were there from the beginning. Each week we bring somebody in and talk about the old days, talk about behind the scenes. You know, we've had Vince Calori, who succeeded me when I left. He was my number 2 guy, my mentor in business. We've had Paul Peterson, who's gone on and had a great career as a game designer since leaving. Darley Kinnerud, who took over the Magic editing under Beverly. We've had Jefferson Dunlap, Tom Waterstrand, who were both involved in the production of Magic, print buying, setting print specifications like we've talked about. Yeah, once we eventually fix that problem.
Did you come up with the modern rounded corners?
Yeah, come up with the right specification
for how came up with that, by the way?
I don't know.
Looked at alpha and said, wait a minute, these are too rounded, we need to make them less rounded.
Oh, like going from alpha to beta. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, that was just like immediately. I mean, as soon as the beta cards hit the market, the players of Magic were just freaking out. We're like, well, the corners on these cards are much smaller. Now you can tell by looking at the back of a card whether it's an alpha card. You're talking about stacking decks, right?
Yep. Very inconsistent.
Yeah. And so immediately, I mean, the players, and of course, we immediately also grasped the challenge. You know, that that's not good, right? So we told Cardamundi at that moment, okay, from now on, make the corners the same diameter as the beta.
So no one facilitated that. They did that on their own.
Who?
Cardamundi did. Between alpha and beta, they just went and said, "Oh, no one's going to care. It doesn't matter.
They didn't realize
we're just going to cut them differently." This time.
It didn't occur to them.
Fascinating. I always assumed that it was that the beta corners were the original intent, and that something got screwed up in translation or something, and that they cut the alpha corners too much. And you guys said, "Whoa, that's not how we wanted them."
We just didn't think of it. Like nobody thought that. Well, we didn't think that they would change the diameter of the corners. That. It just didn't occur to us that that's something you would specify. I mean, eventually,
I agree. I would never have thought of that. That's the last of my concern.
Yeah, and Cardamundi, it didn't occur to them that people would put cards from this printing and mix them in with cards from another printing.
Yeah, well, you remember it,
right? I mean, even though I explained that to them, but it's not.
And the original intent, of course, was that the backs were going to all be different anyway, right? Because that's why it's called Magic: The Gathering. Because the next expansion was supposed to be called Magic: Arabian Nights, and so on, right? Every subsequent expansion was supposed to have a different title and a different card back.
Right.
So maybe that's why they said, "Oh, it won't matter if the cards are all different colors."
Yeah, I don't
anyway.
think they knew that.
Then who cares about consistency?
I don't think Cardamundi. I don't think we'd had conversations with them.
But maybe it didn't enter into your thinking as well either. If you figured that all the backs are going to be different anyway, people are going to be able to tell them apart.
We were just so young. So
it's just like winging it, exactly.
We're winging it. I mean, we're going 100 miles an hour. A small little company. There's just a handful of us, and we're inventing the categories. We're going. You don't stop and think about.
It reminds me.
How round should the corners be on these cards? I mean, what do you?
It reminds me so much of when people go and dissect famous movies and stuff, and they look at particular scenes, and they put all of this, they impart all of this extra intention in just random things in the movie.
Right.
What did the director intend with this random gaze at the person? In fact, actually, someone made a noise off camera, and he turned his head to go look at what the noise was.
I mean, if it was Hitchcock, then it would be a fair question to ask.
Right, but sometimes that sort of thing happens. So people always ascribe way more meaning and significance to arbitrary things, like the corner.
Yeah, that was just arbitrary.
So before we get the current Gen Con, we talked about earlier video, we're kind of getting sidetracked, but let's finish up the story on Magic. After Gen Con, you did a traveling thing, right?
Yeah, the first before Gen Con in '93, the year that we released Magic the Gathering Gen Con, we did my wife at the time, Kathleen, we did a retail tour. We went to a bunch of retail stores to show Magic, to demo it. We went down the West Coast, started in Seattle, went to Portland, went to a bunch of places all the way down to California, then came up through Albuquerque and Denver, and then flew to Gen Con.
Yeah.
And what was so special about that is that we had we just started shipping Magic to distributors, but with no real promotion or marketing, and so nobody really knew what it was, right? And so it was very, very small amounts of product that went out at the market. But at these stores, over this period of about 2 weeks it took to go visit all these stores, watching Magic grow. Like the first store we went to in Portland, the only people who came in to see the demo were Richard's family, because Richard's family. And so Richard,
isn't that so cute what you guys are doing?
Richard's there, and his brother's there, and his dad's there, a couple other people, right? And so, and then I went to a store in Astoria, Washington. Okay, and this is the first time I ever saw people put Magic cards in a binder. No customers showed up, but there was a guy working at the store who thought this whole idea of the Magic cards was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he'd opened up a bunch of the inventory and had put them in binders, in sleeves, like a collector would organize Magic cards.
Maybe the first person to do that.
Interesting.
The first person to do that. And we hadn't seen that. We kind of thought that people would do things like that, right? But we'd not seen somebody outside the company just go off and do that, And then you're just going down and over the going to about 20 stores, on average the reception was getting bigger and bigger as the word was getting out.
How was word getting out? Because there was no internet yet. How were people
communicating? It was word of mouth. Before the internet,
Yeah.
people learned about games, either through magazines, but usually at your local retail store. The stores became the center. The communication flow still existed without the internet. The communication flow went from companies to distributors to retailers to gamers. And there was a lot of flow of communication that way. So game stores became the hub of learning about games. You go to the store and find out. You get demos of games. You can talk to people. They didn't have like big OP programs in stores like we do now. But so just going down the coast on our way to Gen Con, and by the time we ended up at War Games West in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh yeah.
There was like 100 gamers there who were already
burning in the desert,
fanatic, about Magic, and they greeted me with cameras and literally put out a red carpet, filming me getting out of the car. I mean, I went from like doing a demo with nobody showing up to arriving like a rock star,
like Santa Claus. Actually.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And those players. Were they were going purely off buzz, or had they actually been able to play the game at that point?
Oh no, they've been playing the game. Yeah.
With some small amount, modest amount that had trickled out to that area.
Yeah, modest relative to the size of the Alpha run.
This was pre-Gen Con.
But a lot of a big part of War Games West, who was a distributor and a retailer. It was a retailer in Albuquerque, New Mexico. War Games West who drank the Kool-Aid early. They bought heavy into Magic. The guy that ran it, Wayne Godfrey, and the guy that ran the store, Glenn Goddard, who's still active in the Magic community.
Yeah, I recognize the name.
Yeah, they believed in Magic right from the beginning and thought it was going to be, and knew it was going to be big. And they bought heavily, way outside their weight class on Magic cards. And so when we arrived at their store, they had it going.
They had it already going.
They were the Star City Games or Channel 5.
I had shown you. I mentioned in the last video. We had showed Magic cards to people at Origins, right?
Right.
And so that was one of the people. Oh my God! I gotta tell you this story. It's so funny. So at Origins, we're not selling product. We just have Magic cards. I'm showing them to people coming up, and so this guy comes up who was like our sales rep at Origins West, and I show him this card, and he's like, I show him Magic the Gathering. He's looking at it. He's like, and we only deal with the sales rep. I mean, the buyer, sales rep. So he's like, I think I should get my boss to come see this game. It looks pretty cool, right? And he's like, okay, I'm gonna go get Phil. Okay, so he goes off, and about half an hour later, he comes back with Phil, and these are and Phil's a slightly bigger guy, but their thing, by the way, they wore the big 10-gallon hats.
Oh, I see. Because
we're in War Games West, right? So he comes back with Phil. He's a little bit bigger and a little bit taller, a little bit bigger of a hat. And it comes down, and we sit there and play Magic Gathering. Show it to him. Phil's like, "Wow, this is pretty good. I think we better go get Stan." And so these two guys go wandering off, and about half hour later, they come back with Stan, who's an even bigger guy with an even bigger hat, and it comes up, and demoing magic to stand, and all three of them, they're looking there with their big cowboy outfits and looking at, well, I think this is going to be a pretty good game, don't you? Yeah, I think
These boys
so.
got something.
Yeah, I think these boys got some here. I think we better go get Wayne.
Another guy?
I better go get Wayne.
Are you making this up? You making these
No,
names
I'm
up?
not making this up. It was I might have made up Phil. I don't know if it was Phil, but I know it was Stan. And they said, okay, we're going to get Wayne. And so the three of them went off. Half hour later, they come back with a fourth guy who was even bigger, even taller, with the biggest hat of them all. And Wayne Godfrey, and they sat down, and Wayne's like, I want to take you to dinner.
Yes.
And so we went to dinner and negotiated the first purchase of Magic cards.
Oh, wow.
And he
Congratulations. Wow.
And it came out over dinner that I didn't have enough money at the moment. I was raising money for Magic, and I didn't quite have enough to pay the bill for printing. He's like, you've got to get this thing in the market. I said, yeah, well, I'm hustling. I'm out raising money. And he goes, maybe I can help.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
So I did a deal with him to pay, because usually you had terms with your distributors. You'd sell them product, you'd ship it to them, and they'd have like a month to pay. So I negotiated a deal with him where he would pay in advance and get an extra discount. And so he helped finance. He was one of several people that helped us.
First deal, you'll always remember that. And it's
Absolutely,
incredible.
of course. With Wayne.
Wayne?
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
what were the name sequence of events? It was
I don't remember the first guy's
Phil?
name, but he brought Phil. Phil brought Stan.
That's an incredible story.
That was a great. So so it's a Gen Con video. We're talking about origins, and that's okay. We all love each other.
Yeah. So you traveled the world. You became, or you traveled the United States. Before you do the Gen Con, when did it get worldwide? When did
Magic?
when did it get like?
Oh
when
my
you
God.
finally knew it was
You don't
like
know the whole. You do not know the can of worms stories you're opening up now, right? Oh my God. Yeah. So it well, very quick, because in those days, and probably now, but I mean certainly already by the early '90s in the tabletop game industry, there were people, hobby games like war games and role playing games were certainly had a decent market going on in Europe, and a little bit of a market in Japan, and so. There were, by the Gamma Trade Show, and all the deals in those days happened at the Gamma Trade Show, which was held in Las Vegas most years and in the spring. And so Magic came out in '93, summer of '93. By spring of 1994, everybody knew about it. I mean, people were buying English Magic throughout Europe and a little bit in Japan and Australia and stuff. So that was pretty much it. And a little bit in South America. And so by the time Gamma came around, we were talking about maybe 8 months after release, there
94.
was, early 94, there was interest in people wanting to partner with us to bring Magic to their region.
Right.
In a bigger way.
Hence the evolution of all the languages.
Yes. And specifically, one person, Giovanni Angelis from a company called Strata Libri in Italy.
Okay.
Giovanni was the first person internationally to, in that sort of role, to really make to get very excited about Magic.
Right.
And he wanted to translate it into Italian and get it on the market as soon as possible, and Legends as well. And Legends was the next big set that was coming out.
Right.
I think Antiquities was just kind of in the middle of coming out, and he jumped in. And we also met at that show in early '94, Koichi Sato from Hobby Japan, and it led to my traveling to Japan soon after that.
Wow.
Which was a crazy trip.
How would you say the international explosion, how did that change the company?
Well, first of all, we loved it in the sense, like to us, it was, it wasn't lost on us that this could be a huge economic benefit for the company, right? I mean, it's great to sell in America, but if you can sell in Europe and Japan and Australia and everywhere else, that's just going to be that much more market and therefore more economics. But also you take certain pride. We're from Seattle. We're a bunch of tree-loving hippies up here. And I do selling magic in different languages and being able to travel the world.
Yeah.
I mean, to us, that's it felt great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I asked this question on purpose because Gen Con to me, my first Gen Con I went to in 2013 was my first, or actually no, 10 or 11. It was international to me. It was already international, right?
Yeah.
So I asked these questions because I feel like Gen Con is a worldwide icon in many ways.
Thank you.
People travel. You guys have people go all the way around the world to Indianapolis, Indiana, for God's sake.
Right.
But they're going because they're gathering to meet, like you said today. It's like a reunion. It's seeing friends from all over the world.
Yes.
And that's exactly what happens. Is when I went there, these people you meet online, you're like chatting with them. We're like, oh yeah, yes. You meet this. You met random people from Japan or Mexico, whatever, right? And they say, hey, let's meet up. And then you see them in person, and the language is the same. You're playing games, and it's changing focus. It's not just Magic. Obviously, Magic is
all types of.
It's everything. When I went there, it was actually not. Magic was probably just a minute part of it.
Yeah, Magic. Right. Magic has a healthy presence at Gen Con, but it's not the dominant part of Gen Con. It's role-playing games. The roots of Gen Con are role-playing games. Board games has become a really big category. It's got war games. It's got cosplay. Non-war game miniatures and trading card games of all different types. Magic for sure. There's always been a strong, healthy Magic activity at Gen Con, but it certainly doesn't dominate by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. And so so back to the first video, you were saying you acquired Gen Con, and you did some testing of different markets and licensing. Talk to me about how did you decide? I think originally it was Madison. Is that correct? Was the Wisconsin or something?
Oh well, Gen Con was started in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And it moved around a couple places near there. It ended up for a really long time in Milwaukee.
Right. That was where.
Yeah. So the first time I went to Gen Con, which was in 1992, when as Wizards exhibitor selling Primal Order in Talislanta, that was in Milwaukee, and it had been in Milwaukee for several years there, and it stayed in Milwaukee until. We moved it to, after I owned it the second time, moved it to Indianapolis in 2003.
2003, okay. Yeah. So why Indianapolis? Talk about why that was.
Well, Indianapolis is it's a great city. It really is a great city. It's a big event city. It's got the Indiana Motor Speedway there, which does the Indy 500, the Brickyard 400. It's got a bunch of other national level, even some international level consumer and trade shows. And the reason is because the city, it comes down to very practical, boring things like how the city is laid out, right?
Sure,
city is laid out. You got the convention center right in the middle of the city,
right?
And you got hotels down two sides, soon three sides.
Yes.
You got the stadium right next to there. There's places to eat. There's bars and restaurants all over the place. And a lot of the hotels are connected by skywalks and what have you.
Yes.
I
100% agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like going, so it's not like going to Chicago where the Corning Center is 2 miles away from downtown. Yes. I mean, there's the Village. Yes. We call it the Village. Yes. It's like when you go to a ski resort, like a Whistler or someplace, and you got the Village, and there's all this nightlife stuff happening, and then you go skiing, right? Well, the Gen Con's that way. You've got the Village that surrounds, and we take over for a week, Everywhere you go, it's all full of gamers. It's all part of your tribe, It's all part of your tribe.
This year, it's first week of August, so the first week of August, what are the dates again?
No,
I know.
Recognize
okay,
it.
first week of August, I will put the link.
August 1st. August 1st, first, second, and third, and fourth.
Best 4 days.
Best 4 days in gaming.
But actually, the way to do it is when we do it, I would go on a Wednesday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
And pre-party or pre-half, meet up with friends, and then leave on a Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, the number one thing I learned is drink lots of water, and get lots of rest
Yeah.
up front because it's
Well, you gotta pace yourself.
Pace
you know,
yourself.
It's a
It's
serious
long.
business.
It's a lot of gaming.
A lot of gaming.
So for those of you who
a lot
have
to
never
do.
been there, Peter,
Right.
why don't you briefly talk about if you've never been to, what are some of the things
Okay,
you
so-
should do for sure?
Well, you know, I think the first thing people do when they go to Gen Con, especially if they've never been there, is go to the exhibit hall. You got every gaming company in the U.S., in the world, just about, that's in the space of tabletop games, has got a booth there. It's massive. They all want you to come by and see what their games are. A lot of the big publishers of games orient their schedule each year around releases at Gen Con, and so you've got, you know, companies like Paizo and AEG and Asmodee, Fantasy Flight. All these companies are releasing their most important games of the year, usually at Gen Con. Get them there first, and then there's all the companies that support these types of games. You know, that there's like yourself. You know,
Sure,
people
like,
that
vendors.
are vendors that are selling collectibles. Cosplay is a big part of the game. You have people just selling T-shirts, you name it, right? So I think shopping and seeing what's new is a big part of it. Also,
You got the artists too. Right?
artists,
Developed.
authors, a lot of things.
Yeah.
But there's more than half of the space of the convention center and all sorts of space in local hotels and restaurants is dedicated to space for playing games.
Right.
You know?
Very
And
good.
that's part of the that's part of the magic of the show, is that we have this incredible registration system. We have tens of thousands of individually scheduled games that you can go in and say, okay, I'm going to play Greyhawk with this DM on this date, and it's going to be at this location. You can map out your whole schedule, know exactly where the game is that you want to play is going to be.
Wow.
And that's and so playing games, of course, is at the heart of it.
How many would you say, hundreds of thousands of individual?
So we have
side events?
we'll probably have around 65,000 unique attendees at
Wow.
the show.
But in terms of the types of games, so like you're saying, like little rooms and stuff. Events going on.
Yeah, and they're just all over the place. So we'll have well over 10,000 individually scheduled
10,000.
game events.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
10,000. Oh.
He's incognito. He doesn't let anybody.
Brian's taking a break, by the way.
He's going to the bathroom.
He's going to the bathroom. Guys, yeah, we're just
Yeah.
talking trash about him. He's actually an average Magic player.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I think the first time I went, I've heard about Gen Con. You see the videos, you see the I see this beautiful card castle or montage that they make every year,
Oh, right,
basically.
right.
And you see all the cosplay, you see all the fun, but I gotta say,
And there's parties.
it is everything you would ever imagine. It's not just gaming, it's socializing, it's everything. You can bring your kids. The kids have an incredible amount of time. In fact, I think
We have a kids track.
when Nick gets
family game
older
area.
than 2, where he can not just go through the card thing, destroy everything.
Right.
I'll bring the kids, and my 11-year-old loves games, so I can't wait to go back to Gen Con because it is the place.
Bring the
Love
kiddies.
it. Bring the
Sure.
kids. We love the kids.
Yeah, bring the kids.
What's changed with Gen Con in terms of? I know you guys have maybe in the last few years you have. I think you added, like, for example, you have a concession area. That's kind of a nice little.
Well, we always have concessions there.
hangout.
I think the newest thing,
Yeah,
we're
let's-
doing a lot more streaming now. So we
that's
have we have a stage for live streaming, and we have a room for live streaming. So
is that in the exhibit
that's-
hall
that's,
now, or how does that look?
No. It's in a control. It's in a different area. But and we also have, in the exhibit hall, one of the things I'll be doing this year is going around with the roving backpack, cam, doing streaming
The
live.
vlogging style.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah, so I'm going to do that for the first time this year.
That's
I'm
going to be
looking forward
awesome.
to it.
Awesome.
Yeah, just wander around and talk about Gen Con. Hey, what's going on?
Sorry, I missed so much of the conversation.
That's
I had to
okay.
go
That's
refill
okay.
the meter on.
Oh yeah, $70
Renew my
card
tag.
ticket.
Yeah. No,
Well, we were just finishing up and talking about Gen Con, what it is and how it is now, and kind of I was sharing like my initial things, but Brian, we got to go next year. This is insane.
Yeah, I'll definitely
We
go.
got to
I'll
go
hook
and
you
have a
up.
good time. Well, let's have a good time, and I got to say, Peter's going to be doing His Twitch channel is really awesome.
Gen Con TV.
His YouTube channel, we'll put the link below. Help him out.
Yes.
Everybody hit subscribe. Click on all his videos. Watch it 1,000 times or 2,000 times.
Please,
and then put comments, whatever it is.
Right.
And really, the content is incredible. I mean, your storytelling, but he's going to add more content. I think one of the things for Magic or other games maybe consider is pack openings. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
If you get people to open their packs, share their decks or whatever, they go bonkers. People want to see people open packs. It's like a...
People still have those packs though.
Yeah, or no, it doesn't matter. Any kind of packs, and anything. Yeah, magic, any magic. Yeah, but I'll give you an example. Like at the National, which is the event that always coincides with Gen Con, the Sports Collectors Convention. I think this year it doesn't actually. Thank God. What's great about that yacht event is they have live streaming for packs or talking about like guests that come in.
Right.
So I think that mirror of in coincide with your vlogging, be incredible. Absolutely incredible. So
All right.
Well, hopefully you guys check it out. Brian, anything else to ask about the Gen Con coming up?
I imagine you covered it. We talked about it before, but I'm sure as I learn more, I'll have more questions. For future videos.
Well, come check out my show on Twitch, on Gen Con TV. It's called Fireside with Peter Adkison, and that's where I bring in old timers, other people with gray hair like myself, and guys and gals who help make Magic, help in the early years of develop Magic, and my co-host Beverly Marshall Sailing, who's with me the entire time of the '90s. We go drag up the stories.
Dig it up. All right, guys and guys. Peter and Brian had a little grudge match earlier.
Yeah.
Peter's deck, blue vise with some jank. And we had some fun there. There's a lot of... I'll put all the link of the series of videos we did with Peter.
There might have been a proxy card.
I think there was. There's some stories here. Peter, thanks again for all your time. I had a great experience. Brian, thank you again for all your interesting commentary.
You're very welcome. It's an honor to speak to a true living treasure of the game that we all love and enjoy. Really.
You're like a magic card. You're like a magic card for us.
Does that mean you put me in a sleeve?
Maybe one day.
Peter, do you have a magic card that you would like? Do you have if you were to design a card that was you? Do you have any?
My favorite card, this one right here.
Time Walk.
Of course. I love the free turn.
So Peter,
I like getting a free turn, and I love the art.
Peter would actually probably design a card that is related to taking another turn.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah.
Like
this deck started with me wanting to build a deck around Time Walk.
All right, beautiful. All right, guys, check out Gen Con. I hope to see you guys soon. Thanks again for your time. Take care, guys.
Yeah.